My name's Ryan Mickey. I was happy to serve as a volunteer youth coordinator for my state of Illinois and as his campaign manager. Just wanted to thank you guys for everything that you're doing. I know that we're all pushing here for the Liberty movement, and we've seen a lot of success in the states like Iowa, Maine, Kentucky, and Texas. You had spoken of compromise earlier in achieving some of our goals with like foreign affairs. I wanted to ask you, how can a state like Illinois or another progressive or really controlled state work to bring the Liberty movement to our legislator and representatives and see sustainable results and not just talk?
Well, I think Illinois, I'd put right there with like New England and with California, where it's difficult for Republicans to win. So I think a Republican with a libertarian bent actually has a better chance in a place like Illinois. And you know, I think there were times when your Senator Mark Kirk would stand up for things that were more libertarian, maybe not to everyone's liking all the time, but on the idea of indefinite detention, he did support the position and spoke very eloquently within our caucus and on the floor against indefinite detention about probably 2 or 3 weeks before he had his stroke. But I think there is an opportunity in states like Illinois. See, some people want to call it, you have to be moderate Republican to run in those areas. And I'd rather see that, because see, moderate a lot of times just means nothing and really ends up meaning that you're going to vote to raise the spending in the military and in social welfare. If we could have moderate mean the opposite, but I think you can also attract some people who think the idea of a less aggressive foreign policy is moderate. And in my state in particular, I want people to know in areas where the predominant registration is Democrat that I will reach across the aisle. So I was one of 2 Republicans that wrote a letter to President Obama saying, not only am I for the timetable of coming home from Afghanistan, I'm for speeding up the timetable of bringing our soldiers home. And I think if we do that in a state like Illinois, where it is tough and people are sort of more tossed into the middle of things, that I think you could win some of these races we can't win.
Thank you for being here today. We all appreciate it. And one of the things that you had talked about earlier was that we have a whole group of Liberty candidates that are probably going to be serving in 2012 or coming into Congress. What about the ones that are already there? You mentioned Jim DeMint and a couple of other senators that have already been there and may have not had the same views before, but now are starting to adopt more liberty-minded views. Is that you working on them, or are they starting to get pressured by the American people?
You know, I think it's a little bit of both. I don't want to take credit for changing and making the Senate into a libertarian body, but what I would say is that it does help to be there. And I'll give you one example where we fought a battle and won, and this is one of the times that I was most proud of being there to stop something. It wasn't something we passed, it was something we stopped. There was an amendment by a Republican senator that said, if you're accused of terrorism, tried in a court by a jury of your peers, and found innocent, we can still hold you indefinitely and send you to Guantanamo Bay. An American citizen. And I just threw up my arms and I said, how could that be? And it was getting late at night. Carl Levin was on the Democrat side running the bill, and McCain was on the Republican side, and they were both like, well, we're just continuing existing law. And I said, how could that be existing law that you could go to jail forever if you're found innocent by a jury of your peers? I said, I can't believe this. And Levin said, you're right, we'll try to get rid of it in conference committee. Just let it go. And they wanted to go by voice vote. And McCain was kind of saying the same thing. We'll get rid of it in conference committee. But I'm a little bit of a doubting Thomas. I hadn't been there very long, and I was distrustful of that happening. So we demanded a vote, and we ended up winning. Levin voted with me. McCain voted with me. 8 Republicans, and about 51, 52 Democrats. And we did stop something that was horrendous, but everybody was just ready to let it go. And that was me being there. If I hadn't been there, we wouldn't have stopped that. Do we always win? No, we don't win very often. But occasionally we get victories like that. On indefinite detention, the amendment came from a Democrat, and in the last moment, she decided to remove her amendment. So we huddled in the cloakroom, and it was Senator Lee and I, and a whole bunch of people beating up on us saying, oh, we don't want to vote on this amendment anymore. The way it works, though, is if another senator introduces an amendment, she had to ask unanimous consent that her amendment be retracted. It's almost unheard of for another senator to object to you pulling your own amendment. Mike Lee and I stood there and we were under a barrage, and not always a very pleasant barrage from these fellow senators, to let her remove her amendment. And we just said no. We voted on it, we lost, but this was an amendment that would have said that an American citizen cannot be indefinitely detained, that they would be exempt from this idea of indefinite detention. And we lost, but we got 45 votes. Sometimes a vote like that, even when you lose, is important because you can see who the other 55 were, and hopefully you'll work to get rid of some of the rest of the 55.
Senator Paul, my name is Timothy Shanks, and it's an honor to have you address this convention.